Brought to you by JMR Rentals, professional digital cinema and broadcast equipment rentals in Brooklyn, New York. JMRNY.com. And now get 15% off your first rental when you use the promo code WEEKEND. Call 347-721-3400 or email info@jmrny.com for details. Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and today on the program, we're going to be taking a look back at the year that was 2021. Now, it's been an interesting year, to say the least, but overall, I'd say it's been a really good year here on No Rest for the Weekend. We've had some amazing, accomplished guests, and I'm grateful for that. If you've been following the show, you know that I often ask guests for their advice for creators. So I decided to put together some of the best advice that we've had on the show in 2021. The first bit of advice comes from Barry Alexander Brown, director of Son of the South and Oscar-nominated editor for BlacKkKlansman. I asked him for his advice for directors looking to direct their first feature. Is there any advice that you would want to impart to maybe a new director? We get a lot of new directors, I think, that listen to this show.
Well, I mean, you got to start with a really good script. You got to start, I mean, that's the foundation for your house, is a really good script and really good dialogue. And in terms of really good dialogue, listen to the way people really talk. And when you write this dialogue, you write it in a way that actors can deliver. And they're not speeches, they're natural. Write something that's natural, something that has some flair to it. And every character has got to have their own voice. Every character has to have that. And if they don't, there's something, for me, something very, very wrong. It's something very limited. And then in terms of directing, be as organized as possible going in. There's always going to be things that will come up where you have to wing it, but have such foundation that when you wing it, you're winging it from a place of stability and strength. And also you got to have in mind that all the things you're shooting to be able to edit in the editing room, and maybe every once in a while you can be artistic and get that one shot. But other than that, get coverage because you're not as brilliant as you think you are. Okay. And get in there so that when you find, oh, you know what, this didn't quite work as well as I thought, you have some room to be able to manipulate it in post. That is my advice.
That is some great advice, man.
Get great actors.
Get great actors, write a naturalistic script, and shoot coverage.
Be prepared.
Somebody should put that on a stone somewhere. Somebody it should be engraved in every cornerstone of every film school across America. To see the rest of Barry Alexander Brown's interview, check out episode 903 of the show. Recently, we've had some great guests from the world of animation on the program. I asked writer-director Onyi Udeh his advice for creators looking to get into animation, but I think this advice applies to many creators. If you knew somebody coming into the animated world today or wanted to get into it, do you have any advice that you would give them?
The advice that I would give them is, even though this is a creative endeavor, there's also systems in place, right? You have to be disciplined in your approach. It can't just be, I create ideas when I feel like it. No, get into the practice of every 3 months, I must come up with 3 new ideas. And maybe those 3 ideas will live in this specific genre. I will come up with 3 shows that fit animation for children, and it's a bridge show. So it's for ages 4 to 8. So I'm doing research on what a bridge show looks like. I'm doing research on what a successful bridge show looks like. And then I'm reading or I'm experiencing things that are helping me be creative. And I'm forcing myself to work this creative muscle on a deadline, right? I'm forcing myself to work this creative. And then once I get the idea, it's not just, okay, I have the idea. No, all right, here's my synopsis. Here's my log line. Here's the, the story bio. Here's this, here are the characters. Like, actually take it seriously, right? You don't just stop at the idea. And for those who want to get into this, you have to understand, if you treat it like a hobby, that's what it'll remain a hobby. But if you treat it like a job, like you act like you're getting paid for this, even though there's no money coming in yet, you will get those opportunities sooner than later.
For more on Onyi Udeh, check out episode 1003 of the show. Our episode with producer-showrunner Alex Lemay was almost nothing but advice. Here's a snippet of what he had to say for producers looking to sell their show to a network.
So what I try to say is you can't just rock in with a plot, right? Because the people that are sitting on the other end of the table, they control the situation. They control who's there, they control what time it starts, they control who speaks. And only when you have the clicker do you have control of that room, and then that's your moment to drive the bus. But a lot of people will just launch right in to plot, and then. And it's not like it's boring, but you got to understand, people who hear 25, 50 pitches a week, they've heard it all. So it's just different variation and combinations of things. It's not to say they don't value the creativity. It's just they're afraid of saying yes to you more than they're afraid of saying no, because they got to go explain it to their boss why they want to give, Jeff a couple $1 million. And if they don't bring a hit in, it starts to get dicey for them. One whiff and you get given another chance. A second kind of fail, you get the red flags are going up. Third one, you're in real trouble. Fourth one, it's over. They're afraid of that. There's a lot at stake for them. But they also are not in the business of celebrating our art. We're confronting the marketing arm, essentially, of the film industry when we're pitching. They don't have an access to creativity problem. They have an access to eyeballs problem. Their job is to sell ad units. Their job is to sell subscriptions, or their job is to sell movie tickets. So if they could do that by filming a ham sandwich, they would. So how can we be there for them, give them safe harbor, and we mitigate their risk by saying, look, what I do is very difficult to achieve. And therefore, I know what you guys do, and I can solve that problem, and here's how.
It's got to be one hell of a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I feel like, again, in the language problem of I've got a plot or I've got a story, can you speak to that marketing person in a way that is in their language? Is there a glossary of terms? Is there a type of language that you can speak to that?
So I always ask people when they come in, what kind of producer are you? What kind of writer are you? What kind of director are you? Or what do you want to be known for? And they're like, well, really a lot of people will be like, really anything. I can do comedy, I can do thrillers, I can do horror. And really what that person is saying to you is, what do you need me to be so I can get a check? Because I'm afraid and I want to sell my stuff. Then there's the game changers who know exactly what they make, and they're experts at this thing. They know who they make it for, and they know by which repeatable process they can continue to deliver stuff to a studio, right? Or a network or a platform. And so I always use this axiom. Start out with letting them know who you are and what you stand for. So I always have this little code this formula I try to do. It's my films help X achieve Y through Z. So in other words, my films help this very particular audience achieve this outcome through this process. So I had a client who I just love, and she explained her work like this: my work helps Black women overcome trauma through humor. I mean, now they don't care what you pitch, brother. Now they want that. Now it's you. So if the pitch doesn't go well, I can't tell you how many times after I learned that it was, this isn't right for us, but we have this other project. And we think that the way you see things is really great. Would you mind if we talk to you about it? And now you're on a totally different path, right? So I want to sell them something that first off fits into their mandate, right? So one of the questions I always ask is, what's the last thing you said yes to, right? And why do I ask that? Because they're literally going to go through the exact reasoning and process by which they make a decision. And so sure enough, I can tailor my pitch to that process and at least get closer to mitigating the risk for them.
Alex Lemay's episode is number 917. You can also find out more about him at alexlemay.com. To continue with the advice on pitching, VP of Marketing Lisa Papazitmas talks about what she likes to see in a pitch deck. If you had your top 5 tips or something like that for creating a killer pitch deck, can you do that? Do you have those off the top of your head?
To me, the best pitch deck that is out right now in the past 5 years is Montauk, which is Stranger Things. And I think that pitch deck and their Rip-O-Matic really summed up the whole series and didn't really say much copy-wise within the deck. It just had the images that were so needed and the feel and the vibe for that time era and what the story was about. So to me, the most important thing, of course, is the imagery. How you have the first slide is extremely important. The next thing is the cohesiveness with the color tones throughout the whole deck. Third thing would be your font. Next would be your synopsis. And then fifth would be your character descriptions by not using any actors that you think would be right for the role, by using editorial type of images for those characters. That's, the movement and how it's going right now. And if you are a writer and you don't know how to do a pitch deck, well, then there's lots of companies you can hire that can, because that's, an important tool right now.
I'm asking this also for myself because we're working on a deck for a project that we have, and we're also working on a reel for it. And you mentioned Stranger Things, so they used, and I'm saying this for people who might not be familiar with this, but so they used a rip reel for that.
Right, a Rip-O-Matic. They did do that.
So can you explain that what that is for somebody who might not know?
So that's like Rip-O-Matic. So it's basically, you're ripping away scenes from other films and editing it all together into one cohesive trailer, basically, that basically says everything about your film. And you can go ahead and utilize this as long as you're not selling or putting it up on YouTube or anything like that. It's completely an internal use that you will send off to a studio or to financiers or to production company.
This would be as opposed to shooting something and showing scene for something like that.
To be quite honest, I'm not one for you going out and shooting your own sizzle, because the thing is you're going to probably not have the best quality actors in order to do it. And it's going to come across as this is who you want for this particular series. And when we acquire an IP, we'll have our own, ideas of who we think should be attached and who we should put into it. So by doing that, it's generally, to me, I'd rather have you put the money into a great Rip-O-Matic than to put, your money into a self-produced sizzle reel.
For more on Lisa, check out episode 1002. The media landscape is vast and damn near incomprehensible these days, but one man mapped it out, literally. Here's producer and former head of IFC Sundance Channel, Evan Shapiro, with his tips on breaking through the noise.
on the one hand, I would say, scale your ambitions around your content to meet the demands of the buyers. And, the $500 million Lord of the Rings that Amazon is making is an example of what I'm talking about. So existing IP, well-known stars, undeniable pieces of intellectual property, or contemplate things like starting a podcast that can build an audience on Spotify or Wondery or Audible that can help you scale your project when you want to turn around and pivot and sell it to television, or build an audience directly between yourself and your fans that generates enough revenue for you to sustain the enterprise that you're endeavoring in, and don't necessarily worry so much about reaching 1 million people. It's sometimes more powerful to have 50,000 people who pay you $5 a month than it is to have 1 million people who don't pay you anything but have to suffer through ads when they watch your stuff. $5 a month times 50,000 people is $250,000 a month. That's a lot of money. 10,000 people paying you $5 a month is $50,000 a month. That's still a decent amount of money. And so, the creator economy is generating revenue for people who work hard directly from fans who who care about what they're doing. I'm not supposed to curse. And that's not a bad thing to do.
With content in the way the environment is right now, and these different platforms that are technically free to get onto, they're just so saturated now, and it's really hard to break through the noise when you're dealing with everything from professionally made content to like cat videos. What can somebody do to get noticed or break through the noise? I guess that's the internal question, and I don't know if anybody has the answer. But breaking through on a Patreon or getting getting onto an Audible, or there's a lot of people who haven't really cracked that code yet, and I don't know if it's because they don't know how to hashtag right, or the content isn't right, or is it just their particular niche that they decided to make content about is too saturated. Is there any advice on like breaking through that if you're a content creator?
Pick a lane. You have to work hard in that lane. You have to work, I think there's this misperception that I'll post a video and it'll go viral, right? And that's not how it works. The algorithm has to a certain extent, understand the regularity, proficiency, and specificity of the content that you're making. YouTube is very difficult, always has been, and it is designed to cater to certain things that YouTube chooses. So is TikTok, so is everything else. But at least within places like Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, if you pick a lane, you stick to that lane, you're good at it, and you're consistent and regular and professional about the way you produce content, if you stick at it long and hard enough and you follow the rules and you pay attention and you study what other people are doing that are successful, you can break through, especially on places like TikTok and Instagram right now. Or podcasting, although podcasting is very, very crowded now as well. That the part of the rule is, get followers who are influential and get those followers who are influential to promote you. That's a huge part of the rule set. And that's very difficult to do. But again, if you're consistent, regular, professional, and good, and you stay at it and you don't let up, and it's every day, then you can build a big enough of a following to make a difference, whatever that means to you. That could mean just getting noticed by an agent. That could be like, if I don't have a very huge following, but pound for pound, the following that I have on LinkedIn, Twitter, and TikTok are quote unquote the right people who write articles, people who make decisions in media buying. People who, on the political side of the spectrum, produce television shows, and it's a hard lesson to learn. But I think so many people are like, well, I'm funny. I'm just going to put funny videos up. All right, but what are you funny about? Are you funny about the same thing over and over again? Or are you funny about something different every day? Jon Stewart was funny about the same thing every day for 16 years, right? He didn't come out and suddenly start juggling oranges. He was funny about a very specific thing for a very long period of time. And Michael Che is funny about one thing every week, and every week. And that's meaningful. It's important. It's hard to break through as a generalist right now. You can't just suddenly, one day produce a funny video about your mom, and then the next day produce a funny video about politics, and then the third day produce a funny video about dating. You can if you're a comedian and you're going up on stage 5 times a night. Like, that's a different thing. But if you're going on the internet and you're publishing and publishing and publishing and publishing, right now the world wants you to pick a thing and become great at that thing.
I think the question then becomes like, do you choose the thing that's popular, or the thing that is trending that, is getting a lot of attention? Like, do I suddenly make this podcast about superhero movies and the next Disney Plus show? Or, do I keep piping away and talking to indie film people and, trying to get through the noise that way and speaking to indie creators and people who love indie content? It's, for me, it's like always the eternal question of like, do you chase or do you lead? And, how do you keep sort of sharpening that knife to cut through?
Yeah, I mean, it does help if you pick a topic that a lot of people want to pay attention to. I mean, you have chosen a very niche topic here, and it's kind of insidery baseball. So, but doesn't mean that you can't get, like, if you want to get a show on Instagram produced by IndieWire, well, this is not a bad niche to try to fill. But you got to make sure that the decision makers at IndieWire pay attention to it. And that's kind of the case study I would use there. I talk about politics a great deal. That happens to be a very popular topic, for all the wrong reasons. And so, you want to do what you're really good at, because it's not a great idea to do something that you're not good at. But then it does help if the thing that you're good at least has some white space where you can make a name for yourself. But again, even if it's niche or mass, it's less critical that a lot of people see it than the right people see it. I guess that's the lesson. I think, especially if you're an independent content creator right now, what matters is that the decision makers who have influence see what you're doing and like what you're doing. It's less important that a whole bunch of people see it who can't help you do anything.
To see Evan's media map and get more of his insight, check out episode 911 of the program. Evan has also appeared on our other show, Watch This Film, which is currently streaming on Footprint Network. Evan and I discuss one of my favorite films, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. I've learned a lot from our guests this year, and I hope you have too. If there's a topic that you'd like to know more about, just tweet at us at BTR Productions, or you can leave us a comment if you're watching this online. And that's all we got for you today. Thanks so much for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including our movie reviews, visit our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Now you can also subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/getbehindtherabbit. Once again, I'd like to thank Barry Alexander Brown, Onyi Udeh, Alex Lemay, Lisa Papazitmas, and Evan Shapiro, and all the wonderful guests that we had on the show this year. And I want to give a big shout out and a thanks to our sponsor, JMR Rentals, for making this show possible. For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.